To the elite surgeons at St. Jude's Hospital, Maya was just the deaf lunch lady. Quiet, invisible, and easy to mock. She never spoke, never complained, just pushed her cart through the sterile hallways like a ghost. But what no one knew was that Maya wasn't weak. She was trained. She was dangerous. And she was hiding in plain sight. Because in the VIP wing, a high-level defector had just arrived under CIA protection, and someone inside the hospital was planning to kill him, using poison, signal jamming, and a team disguised as staff. But when the entire hospital's communications suddenly died, Maya dropped her tray, looked up for the first time, and proved she wasn't a cafeteria worker. She was a master of signals intelligence. And tonight, she would outplay a hit squad alone. St. Jude's didn't feel like a hospital to Maya. It felt like a stage. Bright lights, white walls, fake smiles, hidden cruelty. Every day she walked the same route: kitchen, elevator, VIP wing, back again. Her uniform was always spotless, hairnet tight, gloves tucked perfectly, and her posture was small on purpose. She trained herself to look harmless. That was the trick. People ignored harmless. People revealed secrets around harmless. Nurses gossiped, surgeons complained, security guards bragged. Maya's eyes stayed down, but her mind stayed awake. She couldn't hear the world anymore, not since the explosion overseas, but she didn't need hearing to understand what humans were. She could read mouths, read body language, read danger. And St. Jude's was full of danger pretending to be professionalism. Her name tag said Maya. Nothing else. No last name, no department, just Maya. That simplicity made her feel smaller, less noticeable. Perfect. She pushed the lunch cart past patients who stared with tired eyes and family members sleeping in chairs. Then she reached the VIP wing. The air changed there, cleaner, colder, more expensive. Private rooms, private guards, private pain. Today the nurses whispered like something important had arrived. Maya caught the words through lips and fragments: federal, classified, protective detail. Her hands didn't shake, her face didn't change, but her stomach tightened. This wasn't an ordinary hospital day, not with those words floating around. And then she saw him, Dr. Sterling, walking toward her with his usual arrogant stride, like the hall belonged to him. Dr. Sterling was brilliant, rich, and cruel in the casual way that only powerful people could be. He didn't scream like a movie villain. He smiled while insulting. He joked while humiliating. He treated nurses like furniture and patients like paperwork. When Maya saw him, he smirked. He leaned close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. His lips moved slowly, exaggerated, like he was talking to a child. "Soup girl, you forgot salt again." Maya's eyes stayed lowered. She nodded politely, but her mind was calculating. Sterling wasn't just rude, he was reckless. A man like that in a hospital holding a federal asset was a liability. He could get people killed just to feel superior. Maya rolled the cart forward. Sterling whispered to another doctor with a laugh. He didn't even bother lowering his voice. He thought she couldn't hear him. Maya read Sterling's lips perfectly. She's deaf. She's basically a walking mop. His friend chuckled. Maya didn't react, not because she wasn't offended, but because she had heard worse. Worse words, worse threats, worse cruelty. She had been interrogated, trained, deployed, broken and rebuilt. An insult from a spoiled surgeon meant nothing. Still, it confirmed something. Sterling believed in his own invincibility, and invincible men were always the easiest to manipulate. As Maya entered the VIP wing, she noticed something else. A new security team stood near the entrance, but their posture was wrong. Their uniforms were slightly too clean. Their eyes moved like predators, not guards. Maya slowed her cart, pretending to adjust a tray. She studied them without staring. Their mouths moved to each other, quick and coated, and Maya felt it in her bones. Those weren't hospital staff. The three men wore badges that said maintenance, but their hands were too steady, their shoulders too squared. Maintenance workers didn't stand like that, and they didn't scan hallways like they were hunting. Maya watched one of them tap a small device under his sleeve, just a tiny motion. Then the man looked up and made eye contact with a nurse. The nurse smiled politely and walked away, unaware she had just been sized up. Maya pushed forward. Her cartwheels squeaked softly. She didn't fix them. The squeak reminded people she was there. It sounded harmless. It sounded annoying. It made them ignore her more. But her eyes caught something else. One of the maintenance men carried a toolbox that was too heavy to be tools. It sagged with weight. Maya had carried enough weapons in her life to recognize that weight instantly. Inside one of the VIP rooms was a patient nobody was allowed to name. The door had 2 guards outside, real guards, military posture, clean earpieces. They barely glanced at Maya. She was just food service. Maya stopped near the room and waited as a nurse opened the door. She saw a glimpse inside, a man lying pale, connected to machines, eyes half open but alert. The nurse's lips formed the word Defector. Another nurse responded with CIA. Maya's skin went cold. That explained everything. A defector meant enemies, enemy nations, enemy organizations, even enemy insiders. It meant money and desperation and violence. And yet, this man was being treated by doctors who had no idea what world they had been pulled into. Maya moved on, delivering meals like normal, but her senses were wide open now. The hospital wasn't just a hospital today. It was a battlefield in disguise. Maya reached the cafeteria staging area and returned her empty trays. She looked like she was doing routine work, but in her mind she was building a map. Cameras, blind spots, entrances, stairwells. She had done this before in war zones, only now it was polished floors instead of dust. She saw Dr. Sterling again near the nurse station. He was bragging. His hands moved dramatically as he spoke. VIP case, high profile. Maya read his lips. He was telling someone more than he should. Confidential details, timeline, procedures. He didn't care. He wanted attention, and he didn't realize how many people could be listening. Maya looked away, but her mind marked him as a threat. Then a sudden commotion happened down the hall. 2 nurses rushing, one calling for a crash cart. Maya followed the movement carefully. Something had just changed.
A code was announced on the overhead speakers, but Maya didn't hear it. She watched the staff react. That was enough. Everyone moved faster. Panic tightened shoulders, eyes widened. A nurse ran past with a syringe box. Another yelled into her phone, but the phone showed no signal. She stared in confusion, tapping the screen like it was broken. Maya's heartbeat stayed calm. She glanced around. More people were checking their phones, frowning, raising them toward the ceiling as if signal might appear from the air. No service, no Wi-Fi. And then Maya noticed something chilling. The maintenance men were suddenly gone, disappeared like smoke. That timing wasn't coincidence. Maya's mind clicked into operational mode. A signal blackout during a VIP emergency? That was a planned kill environment. Whoever was inside this hospital had just shut off the outside world, and now the defector in the VIP room was in danger.
Maya moved quickly toward the nurse station. She didn't run. Running draws attention. She walked with purpose, like she belonged. Nurses were busy, distracted, stressed. Perfect cover. She saw Dr. Sterling entering the VIP room with 2 other doctors. His lips formed words like unexplainable toxin and neurological shutdown. Maya stopped behind a supply cart and watched through the glass panel. The defector's body trembled slightly. His eyes were open, but unfocused. A monitor beeped irregularly. Sterling looked frustrated, like the patient's suffering was an inconvenience. Maya's anger sparked, but she buried it. Emotion gets you killed. Sterling snapped at a nurse for not moving fast enough. The nurse flinched. Maya studied the patient's face. She noticed something. The man's fingers were twitching in a deliberate rhythm. Not random, patterned. It looked like code. Maya leaned closer, reading the sequence. Her eyes narrowed. He was trying to communicate. The defector's finger tapped the bed rail. 1, 2, pause, 3, pause, 1. Maya recognized it instantly. It was old field signal, emergency code used when speech fails. The message was simple but terrifying. Inside. Someone inside the hospital had poisoned him. Not a random accident, not a mistake. Maya's stomach tightened. If he was right, the attackers were already close, possibly wearing scrubs, possibly maintenance, possibly even security. Maya had no badge authority here, no weapon, no comms, not even a team, but she had something better. Nobody noticed her. She stepped away from the glass and moved back toward the cafeteria corridor. On her way, she passed a wall-mounted radio system for kitchen staff, old analog hardware most modern employees ignored. Maya stopped. She pretended to adjust her gloves, but her fingers subtly touched the dial. If the hospital's digital systems were jammed, analog could still work, and Maya knew exactly how to exploit that. The kitchen radio was ancient, static, scratches, faded labels. But Maya smiled slightly. Old systems were reliable, harder to hack, harder to track. She turned the dial slowly, listening through vibration in her fingertips, feeling the frequency change through the device's hum. She couldn't hear sound, but she could sense interference patterns. She pressed the radio speaker with her palm, feeling the pulse. Then she noticed something. The interference wasn't random. It was structured. A jammer was broadcasting in bursts. That meant the jammer wasn't far. A localized jammer would have a limited radius. If Maya could trace where the signal was strongest, she could locate the attackers. She grabbed a metal tray and held it near the radio, creating a crude directional reflector. Then she moved step by step down the corridor, watching the interference strength. It intensified near the service stairwell. Maya's eyes hardened.
Whoever jammed the hospital was hiding near critical access routes. That's where the breach would happen.
Maya reached the service stairwell door. It was slightly ajar, something that rarely happened in secure wings. She paused and listened, not with ears, but with instincts. She felt vibration of footsteps through the floor. Multiple people, heavy boots, not hospital shoes. Maya slowly pushed the door open just enough to see. Inside were the 3 maintenance men, but now the disguise was failing. Toolboxes were open. Inside, compact firearms, magazines, suppressed barrels. One man attached a small jammer device to his belt, its antenna blinking faintly. Another checked a wrist screen showing camera feeds. They weren't guessing. They had intel. They were coordinated. Maya backed away silently and shut the door as gently as possible. Her heart remained steady. This was her world again, not soup carts and trays. War. The assassins were preparing to hit the VIP room, and if they killed the defector, extraction forces would respond violently, turning a hospital into a kill zone. Maya had to stop it now. Maya didn't have a gun, but she had the kitchen, and the kitchen was full of weapons people didn't respect. Boiling water, knives, chemicals, metal carts, fire suppression systems. She moved back quickly, blending into the cafeteria flow. No one looked at her, no one asked questions. A nurse ran past her shouting. Maya ignored her. She went straight to the storage area and grabbed a portable handheld radio used for deliveries. She switched it on and adjusted frequencies until she felt the interference again. Then she began creating a trap. Jammers worked like loud voices in a room. They drowned everything out. But if you generated a stronger, focused interference, you could overload a jammer's output and force it to reveal its position. Maya pulled a microwave magnetron salvage part from an old broken unit, something most workers didn't even know existed. She wasn't building a bomb. She was building a signal weapon. Crude, risky, but effective. She only needed one chance. Maya connected wires using stripped cable and taped them under a metal serving cart. She moved fast, years of field improvisation returning like muscle memory. She positioned the cart near the hallway intersection, aimed toward the service stairwell. Then she activated the signal pulse. Instantly, the handheld radio in her pocket vibrated with feedback. The interference spiked, then shifted. She watched the pattern. The jammer responded. It was trying to compensate, to stabilize. That meant she was close enough to pressure it. Maya pushed the cart forward slowly, pretending she was delivering supplies. A doctor passed her, annoyed, waving his hand. Maya nodded apologetically, never breaking the disguise. But inside her mind, she was hunting. The radio vibration grew stronger. Then, suddenly, silence. The interference stopped entirely. That wasn't good. It meant the jammer had moved, or they had detected something. Maya froze for half a second. Then she noticed one terrifying detail. Emergency lights flickered overhead, not from power loss, too rhythmic. It was a warning signal. Someone was counting down. The hit squad was about to move.
Maya turned down a side corridor and found a small security panel room, staff only. The door was locked with a keypad. Most people would stop. Maya didn't. She pulled out a thin piece of metal from her cart, an improvised shim, and slid it along the doorframe. A cheap latch clicked open. She slipped inside and closed the door behind her. The room held monitors showing camera angles. Most screens were black, jammed or cut, but a few still worked. Stairwell camera, loading dock, and one hallway to the VIP wing. Maya saw movement in the stairwell feed, 3 men ascending quickly, rifles hidden under coveralls. And then she saw something else. A 4th figure, already on the VIP floor, already inside the wing, wearing scrubs, wearing a surgeon mask. He turned toward the camera for half a second, and Maya saw his eyes. Cold, focused. That wasn't hospital staff. That was the inside man.
Maya's mind raced. If there was an inside man, he could open doors, disable locks, poison supplies. That explained the neurotoxin. Maya knew the type, rare compounds that caused paralysis while leaving the mind awake. It was designed to trap the defector in his own body, torture disguised as medicine. Maya needed to alert the real security team guarding the VIP room, but how? No phones, no radio comms. The normal guards might already be compromised. Maya searched the control room and found an old intercom system connected to maintenance channels, analog wiring. Perfect. She turned it on and keyed into the service frequency. She couldn't speak loudly, but she could send tones. Maya tapped a sequence into the microphone using a spoon handle, old emergency tone codes used by intelligence teams. It would sound like static to most people, but to the right ears, it was a distress beacon. She repeated it twice, then shut it off. Now she had done her part, but she wasn't done. Maya left the control room and headed toward the VIP wing faster now, no longer caring about blending perfectly. The hospital staff were already panicking. Doctors were shouting, nurses were crying. Someone tried to call an outside line but failed. Maya arrived near the defector's room and saw the guards outside looking confused, touching their earpieces. Their comms were dead. One guard looked down the hallway and saw Sterling arguing with a nurse, demanding more tests. Sterling's arrogance was still alive, even in crisis. Maya stepped closer to the guards and made eye contact. One guard noticed her and frowned. "You," his lips said, "leave." Maya didn't leave. Instead, she lifted her hand and made a sign, a silent hand signal used by special operations. "Threat inside. Follow my lead." The guard's expression changed instantly. Confusion turned to recognition. He answered with a signal back, confirmed. That single exchange changed everything. Maya wasn't invisible anymore, at least to the right people. Before the guard could react further, the hallway lights flickered again, 3 quick flashes. Then the fire alarm did something strange. It didn't fully trigger. It chirped, then stopped. A partial activation. Maya's eyes narrowed. Someone was testing systems. The hit squad was manipulating building controls. She looked down the corridor and saw the inside man in scrubs approaching, pushing a medical cart. His posture was too stiff. His hands were too ready. Sterling stepped into his path, annoyed. "Who authorized you?" Sterling's lips snapped. The inside man paused. Then he smiled behind the mask, only visible in his eyes. He leaned close like he was answering, and then his hand moved beneath the cart. Maya saw the flash of metal, a suppressed pistol. Sterling had just confronted the wrong person. Maya moved instantly. She shoved her own service cart forward and slammed it into the inside man's medical cart, knocking it sideways. The pistol fired, silent puff, but the bullet hit the wall. Sterling froze in shock, and the inside man's eyes locked onto Maya with pure rage. Chaos exploded. Nurses screamed. Guards raised weapons but hesitated. Too many civilians. The inside man lunged toward Maya, reaching for his pistol again. Maya grabbed the nearest object, a metal tray. She swung it hard into his wrist. The pistol clattered. The inside man struck back, elbowing her in the ribs. Maya absorbed it, spinning with the impact. Pain flared, but she didn't break. She had fought trained men before. She stepped in close and drove her knee into his stomach, folding him. Then she used the tray edge like a blade against his throat, pinning him to the wall. Her eyes were calm, almost emotionless. Sterling stared like he had just seen a ghost turn into a soldier. The guards moved in, restraining the attacker. One guard looked at Maya with disbelief and respect. Sterling pointed at her, shaking, his lips forming, "Who are you?" Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to, because now the stairwell door burst open behind them.
The three maintenance assassins came out fast, rifles ready, moving in formation. They didn't fire immediately, because civilians were everywhere. They needed clean shots, but they didn't expect resistance. They especially didn't expect a lunch lady. The guards raised their weapons, creating a tense standoff. One assassin barked something, his mouth moving sharply. Maya couldn't hear, but she saw the command, "Move." They advanced. Maya's hands were still on the pinned inside man. She released him and stepped back, eyes scanning angles. The assassins were about to fire anyway. They didn't care about collateral damage. This was an extraction kill. Maya grabbed Sterling by the shoulder and shoved him behind the nurse station. He stumbled, furious and confused. The guards yelled at staff to take cover. Maya grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. Her fingers curled around the handle like it was a weapon, because it was. She waited for the perfect moment. Then she pulled the pin. Maya blasted the extinguisher into the hallway, creating a thick white cloud. Visibility dropped instantly. The assassins hesitated, their formation breaking. That was enough. One guard fired a warning shot into the floor, forcing them back. Maya moved low through the fog, silent and fast. She wasn't trying to kill them, she was trying to delay them. She kicked one assassin's ankle hard, sending him stumbling. Another swung his rifle toward her. Maya grabbed the barrel and twisted, forcing the muzzle into the wall. The rifle fired, punching holes into plaster. Maya shoved the assassin into the fog. The third assassin tried to flank around the nurse station. Maya saw him and threw the extinguisher like a battering ram. It hit his chest, knocking him backward. The hallway was now pure chaos, staff screaming, alarms flickering, smoke filling the air. And deep inside the hospital, the jammer continued to choke communication. But then something changed. A distant vibration hit the walls, heavy, rhythmic, like armored vehicles arriving outside.
The guards outside the VIP room shouted for backup, but no backup came. Maya realized security was overwhelmed. The assassins, even delayed, would eventually push through. Maya needed to protect the defector directly. Maya signaled the guards, "Get him inside, lock down." They understood. They moved to the defector's door. Inside, doctors still worked desperately, trying to stabilize him. Sterling was among them, panicked now, shaking hands. Maya stepped into the room and saw the defector's eyes, focused, aware. He was trapped in paralysis, but watching everything. Maya moved to the bedside and held up 2 fingers, then 1. Silent question. 3 attackers? The defector blinked once. Yes. Maya then made another sign. Inside man caught. The defector blinked again. Relief flickered in his eyes. But the poison was still killing him slowly. Maya looked to Sterling and saw him trying to give another medication. Maya grabbed his wrist and stopped him. Sterling's mouth formed. "Let go!" Maya shook her head firmly. She pointed at the IV bag. Something was off.
The IV bag label looked normal, but Maya noticed the seal, a tiny tear, barely visible. Someone had tampered with it. Sterling would have injected more toxin if Maya hadn't stopped him. Sterling stared at her like she was insane. "You can't do that," his lips screamed. Maya ignored him and ripped the IV bag off, throwing it into a biohazard bin. Then she walked to the cabinet and grabbed a fresh, sealed bag. Sterling's face flushed red with rage, but fear was bigger now. He realized someone had poisoned the medical supply. Maya pointed at Sterling's ID badge and then at the defector. Her meaning was clear. "You almost killed him." Sterling's arrogance collapsed into panic. Outside the room, gunfire popped, muted through walls, but vibrations traveled. The assassins were still fighting. The hospital had become a war zone. Maya moved to the window and looked out. In the distance, black SUVs rolled into the emergency entrance, fast, precise, unstoppable. And then she saw the figures stepping out. Tactical gear, helmets, patches. This wasn't police. This was something deeper, something classified.
The extraction team moved like machines. 5 operators in full black kit, rifles controlled, eyes scanning. Hospital security tried to stop them, but they didn't even slow down. One operator flashed a badge so quickly it might as well have been invisible. Another spoke into a throat mic, but Maya knew nobody else could hear. The team advanced through the lobby, ignoring screams and questions. Nurses backed away. Visitors froze. The operators weren't there to save everyone. They were there for one person, the defector. Maya turned back to the patient. His breathing was shallow. His eyes stayed open, watching her. She nodded slightly. Silent promise, "I'm here." A guard at the door signaled that the assassins had retreated down the hall, but they weren't gone. They were regrouping. The extraction team would arrive soon, but they could still lose the defector in the final seconds. Maya moved quickly to the room's ventilation control panel. She remembered old training, toxins, airborne threats, gas attacks. She closed the vent intake and sealed the room using emergency plastic covers from the kitchen supply. Sterling watched in disbelief. "Who taught you this?" his lips whispered. Maya finally answered, not with words, but with a stare that said, "War." Outside the door, footsteps thundered, fast, heavy, purposeful. The extraction team had reached the VIP floor. Maya felt the change in energy immediately. Professionals, people who understood danger without panic. The hallway lights flickered again, this time from real power strain. The jammer fought to hold control, but the extraction team carried counter-jamming equipment. Maya felt the radio interference drop slightly. Signal was returning. One of the guards outside the door shouted something into his comms. He could hear now. Backup was online. That meant the extraction team had neutralized the jammer or overridden it. Good, but the assassins weren't finished. A sudden burst of gunfire erupted again outside. The remaining attackers tried to push through one last time, desperate now. The extraction team responded instantly. Precise shots, clean movement, zero hesitation. Maya didn't need to see it to know the outcome. She had been on teams like that. The assassins were outclassed, and within seconds the hallway went quiet. Too quiet. Then the door opened slowly, and the first operator stepped in. The operator's helmet visor reflected the room lights. His rifle stayed low, not threatening. His eyes scanned Sterling, the nurses, the defector, then landed on Maya. Maya stood still, hands relaxed. No fear, no surprise.
The operator froze for half a second, like he recognized something impossible. He looked at her hairnet, her gloves, her cafeteria uniform. Then he stepped forward, straightened his posture, and saluted her, a full, formal salute. Everyone in the room went silent. Sterling's mouth fell open. Nurses stared like they couldn't process reality. A cafeteria worker being saluted by a black ops operator? It didn't make sense. But Maya returned the salute calmly, small motion, precise form. That single exchange confirmed what nobody else knew. Maya wasn't staff. She was one of them. The operator spoke quietly, lips moving in a way only someone trained would read. "Ma'am, we're here for the package." Maya stepped aside and pointed to the defector. "He's still alive," her eyes said, "but poisoned."
The team moved in, medical specialist included. They checked vitals, injected counteragents, connected portable monitors. Sterile speed. Sterling tried to speak, tried to reclaim authority. "I'm the attending surgeon." But the operator didn't even look at him. Sterling was invisible now. Maya watched as the specialist inspected the defector's IV line and the contaminated bag in the biohazard bin. The specialist's eyes narrowed. That confirmed sabotage. One operator spoke into his mic. "Internal compromise confirmed." Maya knew what that meant. Someone in the hospital administration would be investigated, possibly arrested, possibly disappeared. Sterling stood trembling, realizing his arrogance had nearly killed a national asset. The extraction team loaded the defector onto a specialized stretcher with shielding and straps. As they prepared to move out, the lead operator turned back to Maya. His lips formed a simple question. "Coming?" Maya glanced around the room. The hospital staff stared at her like she was a stranger, like she didn't belong. Maya looked at her cafeteria cart in the corner, trays half stacked. Then she looked back at the operator. Her eyes hardened. She was done pretending. She nodded once. As the extraction team moved down the hallway, Maya walked with them, not behind, but beside. That position mattered. It showed rank. It showed respect. Nurses parted like water. Guards stepped aside. The entire VIP wing watched her leave, as if she had transformed into a legend. Sterling stumbled out behind them, yelling, "Who is she?" he demanded. Nobody answered, because nobody knew. But Sterling wouldn't stop. He grabbed a nurse, barking questions. "She's just the lunch lady. She's deaf. What is happening?" The nurse pulled away, terrified. Sterling turned and pointed at Maya's back. "You can't do this. This is my hospital." Maya didn't even turn around. Those words meant nothing now. Outside in the corridor, the inside man in scrubs was cuffed, bleeding, being dragged away by hospital security. One of the assassins lay unconscious, another pinned to the wall, another missing, likely dead or captured. And then the elevator doors opened. The extraction team guided the defector inside. Maya stepped in last. The operator pressed the button, and the doors closed on Sterling's shocked face.
Inside the elevator, everything was silent. Not because of Maya's deafness, but because everyone understood the gravity of what had just happened. The lead operator glanced at Maya again. His lips formed words slowly, respectful. "We didn't know you were stationed here." Maya's expression didn't change much, but her eyes softened slightly. She wasn't supposed to be discovered. Her cover was meant to last longer. She replied quietly, her voice low and controlled, her first spoken words in months. "I wasn't stationed. I retired." The operator looked surprised. "Retired?" Maya nodded. "I wanted quiet." The operator stared, then looked away like he respected that decision. But he also knew quiet never lasts for people like them. They reached the ground floor. Doors opened. The black SUVs were waiting outside. Rain drizzled softly in the night air. Maya stepped out into the wet darkness. The hospital behind her looked bright and fragile, like a glass box full of secrets. The operator gestured toward the vehicle. "You're coming with us." Maya hesitated for half a second. Then she walked forward. No turning back.
As Maya entered the SUV, she felt an old tension release from her shoulders. The disguise was gone, the hiding was over, but her mind still replayed the moment the defector tapped inside. That message had saved his life. It reminded her why she had joined intelligence in the first place, not for glory, not for power, but for moments when lives depended on someone staying calm. The convoy pulled away from the emergency entrance. Behind them, St. Jude's was surrounded now. Police, federal agents, security. Investigation teams would flood in by morning. Cameras, questions, paperwork, lies. Maya stared out the window as the hospital lights faded. She wondered if she had truly wanted quiet, or if she had only been running from guilt. She had lost her hearing in Baghdad. She had lost friends. She had lost herself. Working as a lunch lady had been a way to disappear, but disappearance was never permanent for someone with her skills. The world always came back, asking for blood. Inside the SUV, one operator removed his helmet. His face was young, but his eyes were tired. He looked at Maya and spoke carefully. "Ma'am, the director sends thanks." Maya didn't respond immediately. She watched the city lights passing like streaks. Then she said quietly, "He wasn't supposed to be poisoned." The operator nodded. "We think the hospital had a leak." Maya's jaw tightened. Not a leak, a door left open. The operator frowned. Meaning? Maya's eyes narrowed. Dr. Sterling talked too much. The operator understood instantly. Loose mouths killed assets. Maya continued. He thought he was important. He wanted attention, so he exposed the target. The operator exhaled slowly. "We'll handle it." Maya's voice turned colder. "You should." The operator studied her with respect and fear. She wasn't just retired. She was still sharp, still lethal, still the kind of woman governments didn't forget. The SUV turned onto a highway. The convoy expanded, more vehicles joining. Maya felt the shift. They were heading somewhere secure, somewhere no one else could follow. Meanwhile, back in the hospital, Dr. Sterling was being questioned by federal agents. His arrogance had evaporated into sweat. He tried to protest, "I'm a surgeon, I save lives." But the agents didn't care. They had recordings, camera footage, witness statements. Maya's intervention had prevented a massacre, and Sterling's behavior had nearly enabled it. Nurses spoke about his bullying, his disregard for protocol. Security reported how he blocked the hallway, distracted staff, and revealed details aloud. Sterling wasn't being punished for being rude. He was being punished for being reckless in a classified operation zone. And worse, he tried to blame Maya. She assaulted someone. She attacked a staff member. The agent stared at him coldly. That staff member was an assassin. Sterling's mouth fell open. "That's impossible." An agent leaned close. "Nothing about tonight was normal, doctor." Sterling finally realized the truth. The hospital wasn't his kingdom. It had been a temporary battlefield, one he didn't even notice until it was too late. And in that battlefield, the quiet lunch lady had been the strongest soldier. At the secure site, the convoy entered a fenced facility with no signs and no windows.
The gates opened silently. Inside was a world of shadows, guards, and silent authority. Maya stepped out of the SUV. Cold air hit her face. The lead operator walked beside her. "We can debrief you, or you can leave now," he offered. Maya looked at him. Debrief. She entered the facility. Inside, the lighting was soft, the halls clean but unwelcoming. A woman in a suit approached. No badge, no visible weapon, but her eyes screamed intelligence. She nodded to Maya. "Miss Rahman." Maya's eyes flickered. She hadn't heard that last name spoken in years. The woman continued, "We didn't expect you to intervene." Maya replied calmly, "Neither did I." The woman gestured toward a room. "We need your report." Maya walked in. On the table were photos, diagrams, hospital plans. They'd been tracking this threat longer than Maya realized, but they hadn't known the final move would happen tonight. Maya sat down and spoke like she was back in war. Every word was precise, every detail mattered, because the enemy inside the hospital might not be the only enemy. This was bigger than one hit squad. Maya described the jammer pattern, the maintenance disguise, the inside man in scrubs, and the tampered IV bag. The analysts listened silently. One of them asked, "How did you detect the jammer without hearing?" Maya tapped the table twice and pointed to her hand. "Vibration. Interference has a pulse." The analysts exchanged glances. That was a skill you only developed through survival. Another asked, "Why were you at St. Jude's?" Maya paused for the first time. Her eyes drifted slightly. "To disappear." Silence filled the room. The woman in the suit didn't pity her. She simply said, "You can't disappear forever." Maya replied softly, "I tried." The woman leaned forward. "You saved an asset and stopped a mass casualty event. That's not retirement behavior." Maya's expression stayed flat. It was habit. The woman nodded slowly. "Then your habits are still useful." Maya didn't respond. She didn't want to return to that life, but tonight proved the truth. She was still inside that life, whether she wanted it or not. The debrief ended, and Maya was given a small room to rest. No windows, a bed, a sink, a locked door. She sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at her hands. They still smelled faintly of soup and disinfectant. She remembered pushing the cart, pretending to be small. She remembered Sterling's insults. She remembered the moment the inside man raised his pistol. And she remembered the salute. That salute was the most shocking part, not because it revealed her, but because it reminded her she still mattered. For years after losing her hearing, she had believed she was broken. Not useless, but incomplete. She had left intelligence because she thought her silence made her vulnerable. But tonight, silence became her advantage. She outread everyone, outmoved everyone, outsmarted everyone, and the world had noticed again. Her phone, secure issue, was placed on the table by an officer. "If you want to call someone," he said. Maya stared at it. She had nobody to call. That was the cost of her kind of life. She picked it up anyway, not to call, but to feel its weight. Responsibility.
The next morning, St. Jude's was swarmed by investigators. Staff were warned to stay silent. NDAs were issued. Stories were controlled. The public would hear a sanitized version, security incident handled, no mention of CIA, no mention of Defector, no mention of lunch lady. But inside the hospital, rumors spread like fire. Nurses talked about Maya like she was a myth. She stopped a shooter. She knew military code. They saluted her. Some staff said she was FBI. Others said she was Special Forces. A few whispered darker theories: black site operator, interrogator, assassin hunter. And Dr. Sterling, he was suspended immediately, his access revoked, his badge deactivated. He paced his apartment in rage, calling lawyers, screaming about injustice. He still didn't understand. In his mind, he was the hero being punished. He didn't see that the system wasn't punishing him for being loud. It was punishing him for being dangerous. Because arrogance in normal life is annoying, but arrogance in an intelligence environment is lethal.
Back at the secure facility, Maya was offered a choice. The woman in the suit returned with a folder. "You have two options," she said. "Option 1, return to civilian life. We'll erase your involvement. You can go back to anonymity." Maya's eyes flickered with interest. That was what she wanted. Peace, quiet, a simple life. But then the woman continued. "Option 2, rejoin under limited contract, advisory role, training, field support when necessary." Maya stared at the folder. It had her name, her history, her medals that nobody publicly acknowledged, her injuries, her losses. Maya felt a tightness in her chest. She didn't want to go back, but she also knew something now. The enemy had reached into a hospital. They were willing to kill in a civilian space. That meant rules were changing. If people like Maya didn't stand in the gap, innocent people would die. Maya asked a simple question. "Is the inside man talking?" The woman replied, "Not yet." Maya nodded slowly. "Then you still need me." The woman's lips curved in a faint smile. "We never stopped needing you." Maya signed nothing that day, but she agreed to one thing: help interrogate the captured inside man using nonviolent methods. She wasn't there to torture. She was there to decode. The inside man was brought into a secure room. He looked battered but defiant. He expected threats. He expected screaming. Instead, he saw Maya, still wearing her hospital uniform, hairnet and all. He laughed. His lips formed, "You're just a servant." Maya sat calmly and stared at him. Then she leaned forward and spoke softly, almost kindly. "You chose the wrong hospital." The inside man's smile faded. Maya continued. "You used a jammer. You used poison. You used disguises. That means your organization is disciplined." The man swallowed. Maya smiled faintly. "But discipline leaves patterns." She slid a photo across the table, a screenshot of his wrist screen, captured on security footage. The man's eyes widened. Maya tapped one corner of the image. A tiny logo, a mark. "This tells me who funded you," Maya said. The man tried to look away. Maya didn't force his head. She didn't raise her voice. She simply waited. Silence is pressure. Silence breaks people when they expect noise. The inside man finally spoke after 3 hours, not because he was scared of being hurt, but because he was scared of being understood. He revealed one name, an alias, a handler, a contact who had supplied the neurotoxin. Maya listened calmly, absorbing it. The woman in the suit took notes. Analysts recorded everything. Maya leaned back and asked, "Who gave you hospital access?" The man smirked weakly. "Someone important." Maya's eyes sharpened. "A doctor?" The man hesitated. That hesitation was enough. "Sterling." Maya felt anger rise, but she controlled it.
Sterling might not be a trained assassin, but he could be bought, or manipulated, or careless. A careless man with access was just as deadly as a trained killer. Maya stood up and walked out. The woman followed her into the hallway. "You think Sterling is connected?" Maya replied, "Maybe not willingly, but his ego opened doors." The woman nodded. "We'll investigate." Maya stopped walking and turned. "Don't investigate. Remove him." The woman blinked. "That's not how it works." Maya's voice stayed calm but colder. "That's exactly how it has to work now." The woman stared at her, then nodded once. Understood. Maya had changed the tone of the entire operation, quietly, effortlessly, like she always did.
Days passed. The defector survived. Barely. Antidotes were administered. His body recovered slowly. And one night, Maya was allowed to see him again. He sat in a secure medical room, guarded, breathing steady now. When Maya entered, he looked up with tired eyes full of gratitude. He couldn't speak much, but he lifted his hand and tapped the table once. "Thank you." Maya nodded. She sat across from him. He slowly mouthed, "You saved me." Maya replied quietly, "You warned me." The defector blinked and smiled weakly. Then his expression turned serious. He mouthed, "They will come again." Maya's eyes hardened. "I know." The defector continued, "Because I know things." Maya leaned forward. "Then you stay alive." The defector's eyes glistened slightly. "Why did you hide?" he asked with his lips. Maya paused. That question hit deeper than bullets. "Because I was tired," she admitted, "and because silence was easier." The defector nodded slowly. "But silence is not safety." Maya stared at him. She knew he was right. Silence is only a mask, and masks eventually crack.
Back at St. Jude's, Sterling's career collapsed publicly, though quietly. No newspaper headlines, no big scandal. Just a sudden administrative leave, then resignation. His peers stopped returning calls. His hospital privileges vanished. His bank accounts were audited. His passport flagged. He didn't understand why. He screamed at lawyers, yelled at staff, blamed everyone. But deep down, he knew the truth. That day in the hallway, he had seen Maya's eyes. He had seen something beyond his world, something that didn't care about his status. He tried to search online for Maya Lunch Lady CIA. Nothing. No trace. That was the most terrifying part. Not that she existed, but that she could be erased. Sterling finally realized he had spent his whole life bullying people he thought were beneath him. But that day, he had mocked someone who could destroy him with a phone call, and she didn't even need to. The system did it automatically. Sterling wasn't important enough to fight for. That's what broke him. Not punishment, but irrelevance. The quiet lunch lady had been more powerful than him, and she never once raised her voice.
Maya was offered her old job title back. Not officially, not on paper, but in function. The woman in the suit told her, "We can place you anywhere, any identity, any cover." Maya listened, thinking. "No more lunch lady," she said. The woman nodded. "Then what?" Maya answered, "Something closer to the threat." The woman raised an eyebrow. Maya continued, "Hospitals are vulnerable, schools, airports, anywhere civilian." The woman agreed. "We're building a task unit for domestic infiltration response." Maya stared at her. "Then I'll train them." The woman smiled slightly. "You'd be perfect." Maya's voice was quiet but firm. "No,
Not perfect. She touched her ear gently. I'm deaf, but I see everything. The woman nodded. That might be why you're perfect. Maya didn't respond. She hated being called perfect. She was damaged, scarred, but she had learned something. Damage didn't remove usefulness. Sometimes damage created it. Her silence made her observant. Her trauma made her calm, and her loss made her ruthless against threats. Maya accepted the role. Limited contract, advisory, but she knew it wouldn't stay limited. It never did.
Weeks later, Maya stood in a training facility facing a group of young operators. They were eager, confident, loud. They reminded her of herself before the explosion. Maya wrote on a board because speaking wasn't always comfortable. She wrote, "Invisibility is a weapon." The operators stared. She pointed at one trainee and asked him to walk across the room without being noticed. He tried, moving slowly, acting casual. Maya shook her head. She wrote, "You look like you want to be invisible. That makes you visible." The trainees looked confused. Maya stepped forward and demonstrated, moving naturally, taking up space when needed, shrinking when needed. She became part of the environment. She blended like water. Then she stopped behind a trainee without him noticing. The room went quiet. Maya tapped his shoulder. He jumped. Everyone laughed nervously. Maya didn't. She wrote, "That's how people die." Silence returned. That was her power. She didn't motivate with speeches. She motivated with fear and truth, because truth was sharper than any knife. And her truth was simple. Threats don't announce themselves. They smile. They wear scrubs. They push carts. They act harmless until they kill.
Maya taught them to read lips in crowded spaces, to watch hands instead of faces, to measure danger by posture, not clothing. She explained how a jammer works, not like a magic device, but like noise. She demonstrated using old radios, showing how analog signals could survive digital blackouts. The trainees were impressed, but Maya didn't want admiration. She wanted competence. She told them about St. Jude's without naming it. She described a surgeon who talked too much, a staff member who mocked the deaf woman, and how that mocking almost created a massacre. One trainee asked, "Why didn't you just shoot them?" Maya stared at him. Then she wrote, "This was a hospital." The trainee nodded, ashamed. Maya pointed to the next sentence. "Mission is protection, not revenge." She looked at them, letting the message sink in. She wasn't a killer, she was a shield. That's what most people never understood about intelligence workers. They imagined violence, but the best operations avoided violence whenever possible, because every bullet had consequences. Maya didn't want to be remembered for killing attackers. She wanted to be forgotten because nothing happened. That was success.
After training, Maya walked outside alone. The sun felt warm on her face. She couldn't hear birds, but she could see them. She watched trees sway in wind. She felt vibration of life through the ground. For a moment, she almost felt peace. But peace didn't last. The woman in the suit approached with a phone. "We have movement," she said. Maya's eyes sharpened instantly. "Related?" The woman nodded. "Same organization. They're hunting the defector's information trail." Maya sighed, then straightened. "Where?" The woman handed her a tablet showing maps and names. Maya studied it. A medical supply warehouse, a private clinic, a shipping route. The enemy was adapting. They knew their hospital attempt failed. Now they were trying a quieter approach, poison through supply chain. Maya looked up. "We stop them before it reaches civilians," she said. The woman nodded. Maya felt her old life return, like a coat slipping back onto her shoulders. Heavy, familiar, necessary. She didn't want this, but the world didn't care what she wanted. The world cared what she could do, and what she could do was prevent people from dying silently.
Maya joined a small team for one final operation. Not full combat, mostly surveillance and interception. But she knew how these missions escalated. They always did. The target, a warehouse suspected of receiving chemical compounds disguised as medical disinfectant. Maya stood in the back of an unmarked van, watching through cameras. She read lips of workers outside the warehouse gate. Normal employees, no threat. Then a black vehicle arrived. 2 men stepped out. Their walk was wrong. Their eyes scanned like hunters. Maya tapped the screen and pointed. Those 2, same posture as St. Jude's. The leader frowned. "You sure?" Maya nodded. "I'm always sure." The leader trusted her instantly. That was new. Maya realized respect came not from shouting confidence, but from proven results. The team watched as the men entered the warehouse office. Minutes later, a 3rd man arrived, wearing a lab coat. Maya's eyes narrowed. Another disguise, another inside man. They were repeating the same playbook. Maya whispered softly, "Pattern." The leader asked, "What do we do?" Maya answered, "Break it." She stepped out of the van, quietly, like a ghost walking into war.
Maya entered the warehouse area as a delivery inspector. Fake badge, clipboard, calm face. She moved like she belonged. Nobody questioned her. That was the curse of authority symbols. People obeyed paper. She approached the office door and listened with her eyes through the glass. The men inside were arguing. Their lips formed words like shipment, failure, hospital disaster. Maya's jaw tightened. This was them, the same network. She stepped away and signaled her team. The leader and 2 agents moved into position around the building. Maya waited near the loading dock where the shipment crates were stacked. She inspected labels, medical grade, approved, but she knew labels lied. She found one crate slightly open. She looked inside, small bottles wrapped in foam, a chemical smell, faint but sharp. Maya closed the crate carefully and marked it. Her team would secure it. But then she saw something worse. A forklift driver approached, innocent worker, ready to move the crate into a delivery truck. If that shipment left, it could poison clinics across the city. Maya moved fast, stepping in front of the forklift. The driver shouted, confused. Maya held up her hand firmly. "Stop." Her eyes were not negotiable. The driver froze. Then from the office door, one of the men saw her, and instantly his body language changed. Recognition, fear, rage. He mouthed one word, "Her."
The man pulled a pistol. The warehouse erupted into panic. Workers screamed and ran. Maya didn't run. She stepped behind a crate, using it as cover. Her team stormed in, shouting commands. Gunfire cracked. Maya couldn't hear it, but she felt it. Impact vibrations, air pressure shifts. She stayed calm. She peeked around the crate and saw the attacker aiming at civilians to create chaos. Maya moved. She rushed low, grabbed a hanging hook from a nearby crane system, and yanked it down hard.
The hook swung like a wrecking ball and smashed into the attacker's arm, knocking the pistol away. The attacker screamed, clutching his wrist. Maya stepped in close and slammed him into the ground. Her knee pinned his shoulder. Her eyes were icy. The man stared up at her, terrified. He mouthed, "You're supposed to be deaf." Maya leaned close and whispered, "I'm supposed to be invisible, too." The team leader cuffed the man quickly. The warehouse was secured, the shipment was seized, civilians were safe, and the enemy network lost another piece. Maya stood up, breathing slowly. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. She looked at the chemical crate again. That was the new war. Silent poison instead of bombs, invisible attacks in civilian spaces. The world had evolved, and Maya had to evolve too.
After the operation, Maya sat alone in a briefing room. The woman in the suit entered with a report. "You stopped a national-scale poisoning attempt," she said. Maya looked up. "Good." The woman hesitated. "We found something else." Maya's eyes sharpened. "What?" The woman placed a photo on the table. It was Dr. Sterling. Maya's expression darkened. "He's involved?" The woman nodded slowly. "He didn't plan the hit, but he's been leaking patient information for money." Maya exhaled sharply. "So I was right." The woman continued. "He didn't know the full operation, but he was a useful fool." Maya's jaw clenched. "He endangered everyone because he wanted to feel important." The woman nodded. Maya stood up. "Then he doesn't get to walk away." The woman replied, "He's already in custody." Maya paused. That word, custody, meant Sterling would face consequences, not public, but real. Maya nodded once. "Good." The woman studied her. "Do you feel anything?" Maya thought for a second. "I feel tired," she admitted, "but not guilty." The woman nodded. "Then you're healing." Maya didn't answer. Healing wasn't her goal. Survival was.
Months later, Maya returned to a hospital, but not as staff. She entered quietly as an observer, walking through corridors that smelled like antiseptic and vulnerability. A new team trained under her now. They blended into civilian environments to prevent attacks before they happened. Maya stood beside a young operator and pointed toward a nurse station. "Watch," she signed. The operator looked confused. Maya pointed again. A man in scrubs was walking too slowly, scanning too much, touching his pocket too often. Maya signed threat. The young operator's eyes widened. "How do you know?" Maya replied softly, "He doesn't belong. His body doesn't lie." They moved closer. Hospital security approached the man and checked credentials. Fake. He tried to run. He was caught within seconds. Another threat stopped. Another silent war prevented. The staff never even knew how close they were to tragedy. That was Maya's success now. Not dramatic shootouts, not convoys, just quiet prevention. But Maya knew the world would always have threats. The more advanced society became, the more invisible the danger grew. People would always underestimate those who looked harmless, and Maya would always be ready to prove them wrong. She still remembered the day Dr. Sterling mocked her, the day she dropped the tray, the day silence became a weapon. That moment changed everything.
One evening, Maya stood outside St. Jude's again, watching from across the street. She didn't go inside. She didn't need to.
She saw nurses laughing by the entrance, families walking in with hope, ambulances arriving, life continuing. And for the first time, Maya felt something close to relief. The hospital had returned to being a hospital, not a battlefield, not a black site extraction point, not a death trap. Maya's phone buzzed with a message, Defector located, safe. Maya stared at the screen, safe. That word was rare in her world. She typed back a single response, good. Then she turned off the phone. She watched the hospital doors open and close. She wondered if anyone inside remembered the lunch lady who never spoke. They probably did, but memory fades. That was fine. Maya didn't need gratitude. She didn't need applause. She needed peace. She began walking away, hands in pockets, moving into the night like she used to. But this time, she wasn't disappearing out of fear. She was walking away because she had done her job. And somewhere inside that hospital, the world was still alive because she acted.
Far away, in a hidden room, an enemy handler reviewed the failed operations. The hospital assassination failed. The poison shipment failed. Too many disruptions. Too much bad luck. The handler stared at footage. A cafeteria worker moving like a fighter. A woman in a hairnet stopping trained men. The handler's eyes narrowed. "Who is she?" he asked. His analyst replied, "Unknown, no record." The handler's fingers tightened. Then create a record. This was the true danger of Maya being exposed. Once enemies knew she existed, they would hunt her. Not because she was loud, but because she was effective. The handler issued a quiet order. Find Maya. The analyst hesitated. She's ghost. The handler replied coldly, then make her visible. Maya didn't know it yet, but the war was shifting again. Now the enemy wasn't targeting an asset, they were targeting her, the silent lunch lady who ruined everything. And Maya had learned long ago, when predators can't beat you directly, they attack what you love. The problem was, Maya had nothing left to love. Or so she thought.
Maya returned to her small apartment months later. She hadn't lived there since St. Jude's. Dust coated the counters. Her uniform hung in the closet like a costume from another life. She stood in silence, listening to nothing, feeling everything. Then she noticed something wrong. The window latch had a scratch. The door chain was slightly misaligned. Someone had been inside. Maya's body stiffened instantly. She didn't panic. She didn't rush. She moved like water. She checked corners, reflections, angles. No one present, but a message had been left. On the kitchen table was a single salt packet from St. Jude's Cafeteria. Maya's eyes narrowed. That was a threat, a reminder. We know who you are. Maya didn't touch it with bare hands. She used tweezers from her kit and placed it into a sealed bag. Then she stood still for a long moment. The enemy had found her. That meant her old life was officially over. There was no going back to quiet civilian anonymity. Maya didn't feel fear. She felt clarity. She picked up her secure phone and made one call. The woman in the suit answered immediately. Maya spoke softly. "My cover is burned." The woman replied, "We're sending a team." Maya looked around her apartment one last time. "Don't," she said.
I'm already gone.
Maya left her apartment that night with only a backpack. She moved through the city using routes she hadn't used in years. Reflections in windows, crowds for cover, alleyways for exit. She checked for tails constantly. Twice she spotted suspicious vehicles. She lost them, quietly. The enemy thought she was a retired, wounded woman. That was their mistake. Maya was still intelligence, still trained, still ruthless. She reached a safe meet point near an underground parking structure. A black SUV arrived. The lead operator stepped out. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, "we're relocating you." Maya climbed in. The operator looked concerned. "They left a message?" Maya nodded. "Salt packet." The operator grimaced. "They're mocking the cafeteria cover." Maya's eyes stayed cold. "They're not mocking," she corrected. "They're confirming." The operator asked, "Confirming what?" Maya stared out the window. "That they fear me." The convoy drove into the night. The war had shifted from protecting the defector to protecting Maya. But Maya didn't want protection. She wanted the enemy dismantled. She spoke softly. "Tell the director I'm not running." The operator replied cautiously, "Ma'am, orders are—" Maya turned her gaze on him. "Orders can change." He swallowed, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Maya leaned back. Her silence wasn't peace anymore. It was a warning. In the safe facility, Maya was given a new identity again. This time, not a cafeteria worker, a consultant, a ghost. But Maya didn't care about the paperwork. She cared about results. She demanded access to the enemy handler file. The woman in the suit hesitated, but Maya's stare forced compliance. They gave her the intel. Names, aliases, suspected locations. Maya studied it like a predator. She saw patterns immediately: supply chain attacks, insider recruitment, medical infiltration. The handler's network relied on arrogance and vulnerability. They exploited careless people like Sterling. They used civilian spaces because civilians were softer targets. Maya pointed to one name. "This one," she said. "He's the brain." The analysts tried to argue. Maya didn't budge. "Bring him in," she ordered. The woman in the suit replied, "We can't just—" Maya interrupted. "You can. You just don't want the paperwork." Silence fell. The woman finally nodded. "We'll move." Maya leaned forward. "No," she said softly. "I will move." The woman looked startled. "You're not operational." Maya's eyes burned. "I never stopped being operational." And for the first time, the facility understood the truth. Maya wasn't a retired agent who helped once. She was a force. And when a force decides to hunt, the hunted don't stay safe for long. Maya joined the team on a final mission, targeting the handler's safe house, not with rage, but with precision. They entered at night, silent breach, no alarms, no chaos. Maya moved with them, her steps calculated. The handler was inside, reviewing footage. He looked up too late. The team secured him within seconds. He struggled, shouting, but Maya watched his lips calmly. He mouthed insults, threats, promises. Maya stepped forward and pulled her hairnet from her pocket, old one from St. Jude's. She placed it gently on the table in front of him, like a trophy. The handler froze. His eyes widened. Maya leaned close and spoke softly. "You never should have entered my hospital." The handler spat words. Maya didn't react. Instead, she offered him a deal. "You tell me who you answer to," she said, "and I make this quick." The handler laughed. "You think you scare me?" Maya tilted her head. "No," she replied.
I think I educate you." Maya turned and walked out. The handler yelled behind her, furious, but his eyes had changed. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was afraid. Because Maya hadn't threatened him, she had shown him something worse: control. The team extracted him. The network would unravel now, not because of violence, but because Maya had identified the pattern and crushed it at the root.
Days later, the handler's organization collapsed quietly. Accounts seized, couriers arrested, insiders exposed. No headlines, no dramatic speeches, just silence. That's how intelligence victories look. The world keeps spinning, unaware it almost burned. Maya stood in the facility hallway again, watching operators move with purpose. She had trained them, guided them, strengthened them. She was no longer hiding as a lunch lady, but she also wasn't chasing glory. She was simply necessary. The woman in the suit approached with a file. "It's over," she said. Maya nodded. "For now." The woman asked, "Do you want to retire again?" Maya thought for a long moment. Then she smiled faintly. "Maybe," she said, "but not as a lunch lady." The woman laughed quietly. "Fair." Maya looked out through a reinforced window. She couldn't hear the world, but she could see it, and she realized something. Silence wasn't weakness. Silence was choice. And Maya finally had control of her choice again. She didn't need to disappear. She didn't need to prove herself. She had already done it. A hospital, a poisoned defector, a jammed network, a hit squad, and a quiet woman serving soup who stopped them all. The world would never know, but Maya would, and that was enough.
Maya returned to a normal street one final time, not to hide, just to walk. She passed small restaurants, street lights, laughing people. She watched couples argue over meaningless things, children pulling parents' hands, workers rushing home. Ordinary life, the life she had protected. She stopped outside a small diner and smelled soup through the door. It made her pause, not because she missed the cafeteria job, but because it reminded her of how close the world had come to disaster. She remembered Sterling's arrogance, the inside man's pistol, the defector's coded tapping, the salute. That salute had been the true turning point. It wasn't just respect, it was recognition. It told Maya she was still part of something bigger than her pain. She had been deaf, she had been broken, but she had never been powerless. Maya smiled slightly and kept walking. She blended into the crowd easily, like she always had. But now she wasn't invisible because she was hiding. She was invisible because she chose to be. And that was the difference between a victim and a weapon. Maya wasn't a victim anymore. She was a weapon that decided when to be seen. So remember this the next time you see someone quiet, someone unnoticed, someone serving food or cleaning floors. The world teaches people to disrespect what looks small, but sometimes the smallest presence in the room is the most dangerous one. Maya was mocked as the deaf lunch lady. She was treated like nothing. But when a national asset was poisoned, communications were jammed, and a hit squad invaded a hospital, she proved that silence isn't weakness. Silence is strategy. The surgeon who mocked her lost everything. The assassins were exposed, and an entire operation collapsed because one woman refused to stay invisible when it mattered most. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment "She Heard," because sometimes the quietest person is the one who sees everything.